States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would you call the roll, please, Laura?
Ms. Meyer?
Here.
Mr. Landwehr?
Here.
Mr. Larkin?
Here.
Mr. Bardell?
Here.
Ms. Lee?
Here.
Ms. Palmer? Here.
Great, thank you. Our mission statement, Columbia Heights Public Schools create worlds of opportunity for every learner in partnership with supportive small-town communities by challenging all to discover their talents, unleash their potential, and develop tools for lifelong success. Our next item on the agenda is agenda approval, adjustments, announcements, and correspondence. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
I'll second that.
Motion by Missy, second by Laura. Discussion on the agenda. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion is carried. Announcements, October 8th, Tuesday, 5 p.m., Subcommittee on Policy meeting in the Superintendent's Conference Room. October 8th, Tuesday, 7 p.m. is the regular school board meeting here in the Community Room. October 15th, Tuesday, 5:30 p.m., School Board Work Session over in the High School Media Center. October 17th, 18th is the Teachers Convention, so there's no school. October 18th, the district office is closed. October 22nd, Tuesday is the 7 p.m. regular school board meeting here in the community room. Superintendent Kelly, any correspondence?
Mr. Chair, members, there's no correspondence at this time.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is communications to the board. At this time, any citizen or employee may briefly address the school board. The board will listen to the brief remarks, ask clarifying questions, and if desired, request that the administration follow up. However, the board will not take action at this meeting on requests presented at this time. Is there anyone who would like to come before the board this evening? All right, I don't see anyone, so let's move on. Next agenda item is the consent excuse me, easy for me to say, consent agenda, consisting of the personnel report. Do I have a motion on the consent agenda?
I'll move that forward.
I'll second.
Motion by Missy, second by Laura. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion has carried. Next on our agenda is acknowledgement of contributions. As our custom, I'll read it. Whereas Minnesota Statute 123B02 permits school boards to receive for the benefit of the district bequests, donations, or gift for any proper purpose and applies same to the purpose designated. In that behalf, the board may act as trustee of any trust created for the benefit of the district and for the benefit of pupils thereof. Therefore, be it resolved by the School Board of Columbia Heights Public Schools, Independent School District Number 13, that the school board accepts with appreciation the contributions detailed in the background in the amount of $6,311.30. Monetary, a donation of $100 was made to Valley View Elementary by Heidi Comer Hodge for uniforms for other students. A donation of $36.90 was made to Valley View Elementary by Wells Fargo Foundation for student needs. A donation of $2,004.39 was made to North Park Elementary by Target, Take Charge of Education for student needs. A donation of $1,455.01 was made to Valley View Elementary by Target, Take Charge of Education for student needs. And the following donations were made to Columbia Heights High School Fireworks Fund: Kraus Anderson, $2,000, MLK Architects, $250. Value in kind, donation of school supplies to Valley View Elementary from Mark Emmy, estimated value of $415, and donation of school supplies to Highland Elementary from Falden American Legion Post 555 for student support, estimated value of $50. So to date, the total fiscal year 2013-2014 monetary contributions to date, $6,434.30. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Motion by Ted, seconded by John. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion has carried. Oh, it's a resolution, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sorry. Sorry about that. Would you call the roll, please, Laura?
Yes. Ms. Meyer?
Aye.
Mr. Landwehr?
Aye.
Mr. Larkin?
Aye.
Mr. Bardell?
Aye.
Ms. Lee?
Aye.
Ms. Palmer? Aye.
Thank you very much. We only do this once a month, so should have remembered. All right. Discussion, reports, and information items. Board members will report on board activities since the last regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Education. So I will start this evening with Missy Lee.
Well, thanks. I was at the West Metro Education Program Joint Powers Board meeting, which led very late into the night. We had a closed meeting, and we are also looking at further discussions on this, the superintendent's evaluation, and I have an executive meeting coming up. Also was at the Latino Festival this weekend. How exciting that was. What a great day it was. It was a warm day with a little bit of breeze, and there was music and awesome food, and it was fun to see the kids with their faces painted, and all the fire department was there, police department were there all day, so it was a great community building event, and I was happy to be there, and the mayor was there also, so it was nice. It was a nice time. I also have been at some football games, which they've won their last couple football games, and I just wanted to share with you guys here at the board. I know we talk an awful lot about how the good things that we're doing, and sometimes we don't always hear it out there, but I was over at Hamlin University with my son, and a parent from St. Anthony came up to Clinton and just started discussing the programs here at Columbia Heights and how that St. Anthony feels that we are doing such an awesome job. And Kathy, I really think you and your staff have really promoted the schools very well, because he talked about the look of the academy, the look of the elementaries, the kids within the community, the staff and administration, and what a difference this community has come around to be in the last 4 to 5 years, and said congratulations to Columbia Heights, because they're doing an incredible job, and their athletics are coming around too, which I don't know about you guys, but coming from St. Anthony, I think that's a high compliment, considering we have, and like I said, I told the gentleman, we've clashed many a times, you know. So it's a really high compliment, and thank you to everyone that has helped in this interim of the last 4 to 5, 6 years to bringing forward Columbia Heights. I'm really proud, and I was very proud that day to be wearing Columbia Heights colors and walking as a Columbia Heights resident and community member and involved with the schools. So it was all talking to the student. That was what was the best part, is he was talking to the student about what a good job that the kids are doing. So congratulations on that. I just think that's necessary for people to know. But that's it for me.
Thank you. Laura?
Thank you. Well, I attended our work-study session. We had a wonderful meeting. We met over at Valley View, and thank you very much for the courtesy and being able to see the tour and see what's going on and the plans of the school. I think things have, it's just really amazing. I actually spoke with an individual who worked over at the school, and she was very excited to talk about all the great collaboration that's going on over there. So it was a completely unsolicited comment from someone, and I thought that was really awesome. So good work over there. And over at the work study, we also discussed all the hard work that the committees have done on getting together the teachers' evaluation, and how beautifully that's coming along. From what I can tell, it looks like we're just about done, and everybody's just starting to get started. So that's a good job there. I also briefly attended a very brief meeting over at 916. Has to be a record for meeting. It was 2 minutes. So, so we were in and out pretty quickly. Took longer to find a parking place, I think. That's pretty much it for me.
All right. Thank you very much. Lori?
Well, I too was at the work study session, and then I was also able to attend the Columbia Heights Library Spaghetti Dinner fundraiser. A lot of fun, good food. It seemed like a pretty good turnout while I was there. I was also attended the Highland PTO meeting. That group has really hit the road running and working hard to plan all their activities coming up for the successful school year. And I too was at the Latino Art Festival on Saturday, and it really was a wonderful day, beautiful weather, fun activities, the entertainment, dancing, music. It was a fun afternoon. That's it.
Great. Ted?
I was at the high school PTSO, Parent Teacher Student Organization, and we actually have a student secretary, which is nice. And we started, it's the first meeting at the high school. We were talked about the Latino Fine Arts Festival and organizing that, and also organizing the organization as a legal entity. So I'm going to help with that and with Orlando Rodriguez. So I wanted to go to the Latino Fine Arts Festival, and it sounded great, but I was out of town this weekend, but I'm glad everything was successful. Also attended the work session and took a tour of Valley View, and I also participated in a webinar for the Minnesota School Board Association. They have a fall legislative agenda webinar, and so that was very informative. One of the things that was a highlight is they're going to produce kind of a talking points summary of the legislative agenda so that school boards can help present that to the communities that they serve, and so it makes more sense as to what MSBA is seeking. I also attended the girls tennis match against Irondale, and our tennis team also is doing very well. The girls continue to improve, and they're finding some success, so that's wonderful. And attended the Twin Cities North Chamber of Commerce meeting. I was pleased to see that on our district website, we were able to obtain a grant from Sam's Club, which I was able to help arrange through the Chamber of Commerce. So $10,000 to help our concession stand serve more healthy food. So what a great partnership that we're able to have with the business community in that regard. And also attended the Lions meeting, and I want to put in a plug also for the Columbia Heights Firework Fund. I noticed we got a couple donations towards that, but they're still collecting for the Homecoming Fireworks Festival or show afterwards. So I know there's a great need, and it'd be great to have a lot of donors for that. And also had a great meeting with Superintendent Kelly. Thank you for your time, and I've learned a lot speaking with you. And I think that's it.
Great. Thank you. John?
Thanks, Scott. Since the last board meeting, I had an opportunity to sit down with Superintendent Kelly and Director Holmgren, just helping me understand some things a little better. We chatted a little bit about the North Park project. I also have attended a couple football games, both the varsity and the JV. It's really fun to see the kids developing. I was at the work session at Valley View, where we got a chance to witness, what the needs really are within that school and that they're real. I also was able to attend the Latino Festival, and it was really a lot of fun. I was there. I got to help set up the truck, but then I wandered around, so I didn't have to stay by the truck too long, so that was good. And throwing in a plug for myself, speaking of trucks, the fire departments, the Columbia Heights Fire Department is hosting their open house this Saturday, the 28th. It's from 11 to 2. There's a lot of really great educational things there. There's fun. Our Explorer program is doing a fundraiser, but it's always a really good time so we're hoping for good weather and a good crowd.
Great. Thank you very much. I also was at the work session and went on tour with everybody else down at Valley View. Thanks, Mr. Fort. And I was also at the football game Friday night, which was good until my son wanted to go home, of course. And had several meetings with Superintendent Kelly, which were delightful as always. And with that, I will turn it over to Superintendent Kelly for her report.
Thank you. Am I blushing? Chair Bardell and members, district negotiation team and Local 710 have been conducting negotiations, as you know, over the course of the fall. And we're happy to announce tonight that we have a tentative agreement on the 2013-14, 14-15 contract. And there are a few processing details between our chief negotiator, Karen Keppel, and the union that need to get done. And then district administration will be discussing strategies and the contract terms with the school board on October 8th. And the union, Local 710, will be holding meetings with their membership as well to bring it to a vote. And I just would like to thank everybody, along with Karen Keppel, for just how respectful and involved and serious the process was and how timely. So that is a bit of good news. I've also been involved with coffee and conversations with multiple members of the community over the last couple weeks, and looking for areas of collaboration and partnership and cooperation. And Director Mahan and I had a wonderful chat with Nor'easter with Carrie Ashmore, and also talked with Northwest Bank, Larry Petrek, and then had another conversation with our chief of police. All of those, I think, will lead to additional partnerships and collaborations. I had the pleasure of attending the Northeast Metro 916 Superintendent's Advisory Council meeting, where we had a large focus on the discussion that is something near and dear to our hearts here in Columbia Heights, and that's on career and college readiness. The Superintendent Hayes was nice enough to facilitate a meeting where we brought in the president from Century College, and had some frank discussions about what it would take to collaborate on different means with Century. And from that, a group will be forming with the superintendents to write a white paper regarding what the superintendent's real critical issues are in K-12 education, and collaborating and doing really concurrent enrollment things. Very productive meeting. We had other issues as well, but that was really the predominance of the meeting. I would like to announce tonight that Larry Petrek, bless his heart, has once again said that he will chair our district finance council, and I think that this is for over a decade that he has been doing that. So we are especially grateful for his commitment to our district through good times and in bad, because he was here when we were doing statutory operating debt. So thank you, Larry, and we look forward to working with him. I have to just concur with everyone around the table that the Latino Arts Festival was just a wonderful event, and I would like to thank particularly the City of Columbia Heights Police and Fire Department for their support. They had the fire truck there all day and the police car, and the kids were climbing in and out and looking at how tall the ladder would go. So thank everybody for that. And then, you know, the Office of Teaching and Learning and the Urban Liaisons and Buildings and Grounds and the security services made it all look easy, but it was a lot of work, so just a big shout out to all of them. It went from 11 to 4, but they were here well after cleaning up, and they were here for setup, and the K-12 visual arts teachers helped set up the art displays, and it was a wonderful art display of Latino art. So thank you for all of that. I personally look forward to this event in future years. I'm just putting in a plug right now. I have to say that I've enjoyed each and every one of the meetings that I've had with members of the school board, and it was at the work study sessions as well. So thank you. That concludes my report.
Very well, thank you very much. All right. Our first information item, or next information item this evening is Northeast Metro 916, Carner Blue Education Center, and Nicole Hallaby, and Superintendent Connie Hayes, Dan Naditz, and I'll turn it over to Superintendent Kelly.
Well, I would like to welcome Northeast Metro 916, and I would also like to say that we are very lucky to have Val Ray Bo, who is the principal of Carner Blue Education Center, with us tonight as well. It's always an honor when we can have you all out, and not only for one, but two items tonight. We've heard so much about this project from our representative to your board, from Member Palmer, that it's going to be wonderful to hear some more about it now, and to hear about what we might be doing in the future with other projects as well. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the baton to Nicole Hallaby.
Thank you, Superintendent Kelly, Chairman of the Board, board members. It's my pleasure to introduce Superintendent Connie Hayes, Superintendent Northeast Metro 916, the intermediate district that we are proud members of, and Director Dan Naditz, and Principal of Carner Blue, Val Ray Bo. And they're going to be talking to you about this really exciting new project that Member Palmer and I got to go to the groundbreaking for, and it's on a beautiful lot, and they will be sharing lots of information about Carner Blue. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Nicole, and thank you very much, Board, for an invitation to come back and give you an update about our great project. When we were here prior, we shared with you kind of the need that we have for our facility, and then shared with you sort of the consensus that we had drawn after about 2.5 years of talking to our member districts about our need. And what resulted from that conversation is a great three-step plan for facilities improvement for our school district, and we have initiated that first part of the plan, the Carner Blue Education Center. But as just a quick review so you know where we started and where we're going in the future, this three-step consolidated plan involves two K through 8 consolidated buildings, one in the northwest part of our district and one in the southeast part of our district. And the Carner Blue Education Center is that first one in the city of Blaine. If you drive up that direction at all, it's on the corner of Lavelle Road and Hamlin Avenue. So it's kind of on that corner. It butts right up to some beautiful DNR land that will never be developed. And as Dan shares you a little bit about the program, it really helped us to develop the thematic vision of the building and how we're going to pursue programming for the students. But I also wanted to let you know that we're trying to stay a little bit ahead of the game in terms of now that the economy is sort of picking up, land prices are starting to increase, and knowing that we needed a spot for that southeast building, we've been out looking for land and have a proposed site that we're in the process of working on. If you're down in the kind of the Lake Elmo, Woodbury area, if you drive that area, we're on the corner of where Radio Drive and 94 meets. Some of you might have eaten at a restaurant called the Machine Shed. So it's just to the north of that. Right now it's just an open cornfield. But we think it's going to be a great site. It's in the city of Lake Elmo and in the North St. Paul, Maplewood, Oakdale School District. So we're very excited about that, and hopefully in the next couple of months we'll be bringing an agreement back to our board at 9/16 to get that approved. So that one is on its way. We probably won't move forward with designing that facility and building until we've had a chance to actually live in the Carner Blue Center for a little while so that we can learn whether or not the decisions we made in design really work well for the students that you as member districts send to us. And then the third step in the plan is one that Laura has kind of taken under her wing and is very interested in helping us pursue, and that is to remodel and do the deferred maintenance on our Capitol View Center that's in Little Canada. That one is located right across the street from Roseville Middle School. It's in a wonderful location for our district, very central, and so, you know, we really want to do the renovations of that building and stay in that location. But we have some pretty significant hurdles to get over. Right now, the legislative pieces actually prevent us from doing anything in the building. And I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about that right now, but Laura is very interested in helping us advance that conversation with the legislature. So we're willing to take any help anybody will give us. So you'll probably hear more about that into the future. But tonight, as I said, we wanted to give you a great update on the Carner Blue Education Center, and for that I'm going to turn it over to Director Dan Naditz.
Good evening. I'm very happy to be back here. I think it was maybe a year and a half ago or
Something like that.
it was 2 years ago that we were here talking about the potential of building this building, and it has come to reality. So we're very happy about it. So just a little summary about the program. We hope to serve anywhere between 120 and 140 students in the building. Today, if we opened Carner Blue, we could potentially have about 90 students enroll. So we do have room to grow, which is great, and I think we will grow into the building if any indication of referrals play out. So That also, by opening Carner Blue, it does create some openings in our other programs as well. So the programs in the southeastern part of our districts will benefit from this, as some students will move from those programs to Carner Blue. We serve primarily students with autism and emotional and behavioral disorders, along with students who have cognitive deficits. In this process, in our facilities plan, we are closing the Onika program and Otter Lake program. Those are two smaller satellite programs with 3 and 4 classrooms each. And those students and staff, many of them will be moving over to the Carner Blue building. So some milestones that occurred. You know, we started the earthwork and bid packages in April and May, and then, as noted, we had the groundbreaking in June. And then we hope, really hope, that everything goes well and we'll be able to take occupancy in July and open then for school in August of 2014. So far, everything's on track. I'm very happy about that. The weather's been good to us. All right, so the design of Carner Blue, and I'll get to the name of Carner Blue in a little bit, but we partnered closely with our member districts. We wanted to know what our families and your families and students needed out of a new building. One of the things that came out very clearly was a sense of community, a sense of belonging, a welcoming environment, something that the kids could really look forward to going to school to. So we got information from the members on what that might be. We included our coordinators and supervisors from our member districts to provide input in the design phase. We worked with BWBR, or architects, and one of the many reasons, one of the reasons we chose them, and one of the many reasons is that they have a expertise in behavioral health facilities and safety and security, but also providing a very welcoming, warm environment. We didn't want this building to be looking like a hospital or a day treatment program. We want it to be an elementary, middle school program, but also had many of the features that would provide safety and security for our students and staff. So bringing this all together, the Carner Blue has a nature and play-based educational philosophies, and I think you might have a handout. So I won't go into too much detail. That handout does describe the nature and play-based philosophy and sort of the educational philosophy that's going to play out at Carner Blue. But one of the things I'll talk about is, the DNR spot right next to our land is cannot be touched, and we have a beautiful piece of land that's wooded, and we really wanted to incorporate nature and a place theme into our education, meaning the students get to know their building. We have a Minnesota sort of nature theme to it with the prairie, lake, river, and what is it? Forest. Okay, the 4 things. And so even the rooms within this building will have names that are associated with nature. And we can use that in instructional practice in terms of kids connecting to their place, their school, and Minnesota as well. Another, like I said, important thing is the intentional school identity create community. So we came up with the name Carner Blue. Actually, Valerie was very instrumental in coming up with this name along with her team. Did a lot of research and trying to, if you ever try to name a school, it's very difficult. We just didn't want to call it the Northwest Education Center. So Carner Blue really came from some research around the DNR and recognizing that the Carner Blue butterfly is an endangered species in Anoka County and near the Blaine area. So tying into that and sort of what the representation of a butterfly is, which is regrowth, joy, new beginnings kind of theme, we chose the Carner Blue butterfly as the mascot and the name for the new education center. Fits in with the play-based and nature concepts. Okay, I don't know if you'll be able to read this slide, but this is something that BWBR, the architects, put together to really distinguish how unique this building is. As I said earlier, we wanted to create a very safe, secure, welcoming environment. So it's kind of an in-between between a typical elementary school and a behavioral health facility. Some of the concepts around the construction of it are the durability. We really looked at some materials that are highly durable. We tested many different kinds of sheetrock, double sheetrock, with certain surfaces on them to see if they would puncture holes in them. Also, there's some unique lighting features, unique heating and air conditioning features that are quiet for our students. We really looked at the difference between a safe and secure environment where we need to keep students in certain locations. We were able to get a code from the marshal, the state marshal, that would certify this as a same levels of behavioral health building, so then we can lock all of the doors so our students can't leave the building. All of our doors would be on key slides or fabs, so you can unlock the door with just a slide of a key card, and the handles. We don't have to use the handles. The other thing is we wanted to keep it as close to a learning environment as possible, and not just make it looking at the health and safety part of it. I'll put my glasses on here to see this. The construction costs I want to talk a little bit about. It's a little more expensive when you're using these types of materials. So when you build a building of 72,000 square feet and for 140 plus students, it's a little different cost, but we're using very, very different types of materials and spaces. And I'll talk about the spaces in a minute here. So we'll go to the exterior of the building, and that's the top picture. As you can see, that's what it looked like. It will look like when it's finished. On the right side up there, you can see some higher windows and then a window on the lower part. That's a classroom, and we intentionally put windows higher up so students can't see out, but we get a lot of daylight coming in. And then little windows at the bottom so they can see what's going on outside as well. So many of the classrooms are designed with higher windows and these smaller windows so kids can see out. The bottom picture is what Karner Blue looks like today, or this week. That is the gymnasium going up. You can see that the parking lot and driveway there is coming in. It's all on schedule, and it's coming along fine. So let's go to the interior part where I can talk a little bit about some of the unique features of the building. This is the corner, the bottom corner left community. And so there are 6 classrooms in that community. Each classroom has a individual breakout space where, so if students need a place to be by themselves to read or to just de-escalate or to problem solve, they have that within the classroom. Then we have an outer area, which is the larger community area where we can gather groups, classrooms, multiple classrooms, or the whole community together to do an activity. Or on an individual basis, students can leave the classroom, problem solve out in that space, and try to get them back into the classroom. And then within the community, we have 6 or 7 other intervention spaces, small intervention spaces, where staff and student can work together. So the idea here is really to provide a spectrum of interventions before students have to leave the community and maybe go to what we are calling our option suite, where there would be some more intensive intervention going on at that point. And move on to the interior. This is just a picture or a drawing of what the community space would look like outside the classrooms. We really focused on some of the materials, the equipment, tables, desks. We're going to have some, I think, unique seating areas, comfortable seating areas for students to go out and either work on an individual basis or just work with their staff to problem solve. So in a sense, we tried to create a lot of individual spaces for students to learn. As you know, I think from when we met with you, that was one of the things that was very important for our students and staff. So I went through that pretty quick, and I wanted to leave a little time for questions before Connie moved on to talk about Metro Heights, if you have any questions.
Questions? Comments? Looks great.
Okay.
Questions? I think we move on.
All right.
Thank you.
So just maybe one last comment. You can see the shape of the building isn't a typical square or rectangle shape, and that's really intended by design. Some of the students that we serve in our programs if they see an exit at the end of the hallway, when they're coping with some stress, they tend to run. So the idea was to change the sight line so that that's not an immediate visual cue for them to utilize. So it is kind of a unique shape. I think it's kind of artsy looking, but it's very purposeful. Was a lot of thought put into it. So hopefully it will work well for the students that you send to us. So Kathy had also asked if I would do a little update for you on our Metro Heights Academy. As you know, probably Laura's been telling you that, our location that we had here in Columbia Heights was not going to be available for us moving forward because that building was going to go to a different owner. And so we scrambled for a while to look for a new site for our program, and in the process of doing that, we were able to develop a really wonderful partnership that will be fully implemented next year with Spring Lake Park School District. Part of this has started probably at least 5 years ago when I started sharing with the superintendents that many of the ALC programs in the metro area had been starting to see a loss of students, partly because our high schools were seeing some enrollment drops, but also high schools were doing a better job in programming for kids at the high school. And so many of the ALC programs were starting to see some challenges financially in balancing that part of the budget. So I proposed to the superintendents, and I continue to talk about that I think some partnerships between metro area schools in the area of ALC is really something to take a close look at. And so it just so happened, given this opportunity, that we were going to have to find a new location for Metro Heights. It came at the same time that Spring Lake Park was beginning to think about something different for their ALC program. And so we found a location for our program. It's actually in the city of Fridley, right on, I forget the exact address. Laura, can you help me remember? I should have written that down.
69th and University.
Thank you, Nicole. 69th and University. And we did our build out this summer and moved into it. And the students are already enrolled and working very well. Somebody missed a little typo there. It says St. Louis Park Partnership. That's not quite right. It's Spring Lake Park Partnership. So I'll have to go back and change that. Sorry about that. So this particular year, it's just Columbia Heights students that are at our new location. And our new principal, some of you might have met Jonas Bugan, who used to be the principal of our ALCs. He left us this summer, was building his career, and moved on to another district. One of the things he did is prepared very well his assistant, Kristen, or KJ Hauge, was promoted into the principalship. And so she is really the principal of all three of our locations. She's located actually at the Spring Lake Park High School program and helping them to get ready for the transition. And we have a lead teacher who's on site at Metro Heights all day long to assist with the programming there. So, and his name is Matt Unken. And then we also have our night school programming located at Metro Heights as well. So next year, we will have Spring Lake Park will join us at that site, and we're anticipating around 120 day students once that transition happens. And we're also going to be probably looking for a new name. Bringing the two school districts together, we thought one way to really help everybody feel included is to go through a process with the students and find an appropriate new name and sort of a new beginning for everybody together. So here's a picture of our new site. It was, it's in an office park location. And there we got it right, Spring Lake Park. And there's the schedule. We did quick demolition. We moved in. The staff came on August 26th, and as you know, we had a ribbon cutting ceremony on September 3rd with the students. So we give you a little bit of information as to where we were as of the 24th. 84 students enrolled. And where do they come from? About 50% of them actually come from Columbia Heights, 30% from Minneapolis, and then 20% mixture of other districts. At nighttime, we pick up some additional students. Most of the students, as you can see, are from Columbia Heights, some from St. Anthony, and then some from other districts as well. Not all ALC programs actually run a night school program. And so for some students that are fully enrolled in their high school program and need to pick up credits, having that night school opportunity to get those credits picked up so they can graduate in time is a real benefit. So quickly, one of the big things we're doing at our ALC programs this year is a one-to-one technology initiative, which looks a little different perhaps than some of the other districts that are doing it, because we didn't issue an iPad for every single student, but we do have iPads, desktop computers, and laptops. So every student will have access to at least one of those technology devices when they're there. And we're big into using Schoology. The teachers had created an individualized program beforehand, and they're now transferring all of that into an electronic form so that they can use that during the one-to-one initiative. And just this fall now, we're rolling out 916 apps, which is our form of Google Apps. So we're excited about that. The staff are learning right alongside the students. And as you can see, we've rolled this out at all 3 of our sites, Montemita Academy, Eastview and Metro Heights, and then also at the I forget what LAC stands for, but that's the ALC at Spring Lake Park. So next year, that site will go away, and Spring Lake Park will use that space for some of the needs that they have across the district. So there you have it. We're off and running, and we're really pleased with the site, and I think the students from Columbia Heights that are coming are finding it's working very well. The design of all of our ALC sites now are very similar, where you have kind of a commons area in the center, and then the classrooms are surrounding that. The administrative staff have desks and offices that look into that central area, so it works really well for supervision of activities when there's more unstructured work going on if they're not in the classroom. So I'd invite you to stop by and see the site if you're at all interested, or give me a call and I'll bring you and you get a chance to see it and meet KJ and Matt Unken too. So we're really proud of it and happy to be able to provide that service to Columbia Heights and to the region here.
Great. Any questions, comments? Go ahead.
I've actually just had a comment. From the way I understood it, is part of the reason it's going to be the one-to-one technology is because we're getting away from the packet model?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the packet would be basically a manila envelope with everything that they needed to complete. Now instead, they'll be able to do those lessons in more of a digital form?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep. As well as use any curricular materials more in an electronic form that they have in the past as well, to supplement that work.
Yeah, Ted.
Yeah, I would imagine that would also help with more individualized learning, using one-to-one.
Exactly, and really, you know, when you have a one-to-one environment, it's much easier for the instructor to do that one-to-one teaching and learning when it's appropriate, but also it does facilitate group learning as well. Everybody has their own device. They're all doing a search for some particular topic, and then they collaborate and share with each other. So I think one of the great benefits of the one-to-one environment is really kind of taking that cooperative learning that we've been using in schools for many years to a new level. Because if you think about it, out in the work environment, very few of us work, you know, ourselves at our desk all alone. We're collaborating with other employees in the workforce. And so I think this is really giving students an opportunity to have experience at that before they leave us and actually go into the workforce.
Well, speaking of collaborating, again, I know I've said this before, I'm glad that you're here and that we
thank you.
can collaborate with the other school districts to provide services that we couldn't possibly do on our own. It would be far more expensive to do that. So thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
How many
And-
Heights students are attending 916? Do you have any idea?
Well, on any given year, we'll see about 4,000 students in all the different programs that we have. If we're speaking specifically of our level 4 special education programs, on most days we have about 400 students, but over the year we'd see about 800 students total because some of them are in and out or move on, so the you know, the migration out of those programs is pretty big. But then we have about 800 to 850 students we see at the Career and Tech Center. You know, our ALC students are added into that 4,000. So with everything we do in special ed and regular ed, it's about 4,000 students each year.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to thank each and every one of you for coming out again tonight. It's not only are we collaborating on one building project, but on two. Searching and planting an ALC and causing it to grow is a difficult job, and it went very well, and I want to thank your business manager for working with ours, because the two of them were a terrific team. And the site, I really would encourage, if you get a chance, to go up there because it is very unique, right down to the water fountains. And Member Palmer keeps us very apprised of what's going on with Carner Blue. So if when there was a pause for questions, I feel like we have been updated almost every 2 weeks on the project, and even to the point of bringing us the little the
Oh, you
butterflies.
missed butterflies.
So we are with you all the way, and thank you so much for sharing with us tonight.
Well, I hope when we open the building and have our grand opening, we'll see many of you there.
Hope to be there. Thank you very much for coming.
Welcome.
Appreciate
Thank you
it.
for inviting us.
My son will be going.
Okay. Next on our agenda this evening is the board is going to get an update on transportation. So we have Nicole and Linda Andert, our transportation coordinator.
May I say
Yeah,
something?
absolutely.
At this point in the agenda, I would just like to say that this was really to be the Bill Holmgren show. And he is currently under the weather and will not be with us for at least a few weeks. So I want to thank Linda for coming tonight. She would be here anyhow, and Nicole, and I'm sure Bill would be here if he could, but he's sending his best regards as we are sending him well wishes.
Thank you, Chairman Bardell, Superintendent Kelly, members of the board. My pleasure to introduce Linda Andert. And Linda joined us last year as the transportation coordinator. I like to say extraordinaire because she has done a fantastic job. That, and coupled with our new bus company, this has been a great start to the school year. So it's my pleasure to introduce Linda and let her talk to you about transportation so far this school year.
Okay, it's a new year, new buses, new contractor, me new to the position. It was a major learning opportunity. I learned one-way streets in Minneapolis, which I am from Wisconsin, which is like foreign to me. It went really well. This year we have 15 special ed bus routes that we had 14 and a half last year. We're utilizing the buses better this year in the afternoon due to the 15-minute more school days. It lets us get buses back to the elementary schools in order to get them ready to be used again for the Encore program. We have 24 and a half regular buses, which is up 3 and a half from last year. One of the increases is for the Metro Heights program, which is the ability, we have the ability to bring kids in, bring kids home, and then it just happens to work out that we end up here by the high school, so we're able to take the kids from here to the afternoon session, so it worked really well. The other buses are being used, just like the special ed buses, to make the afternoon elementary routes shorter, so we're able to utilize the 4-hour minimum on the contract to get the buses back to Encore. Last night was the first night of Encore, and all the buses made it. It's like, I was nervous. On paper, it always looks good, but physically, we have an issue with 7-minute stoplights, but we'll get that worked out. We have done bus evacuations at all schools. Elementary schools were the second week of school, and the high school and the middle school were done Monday of this week here. Basically, the phone calls have mellowed out. It is going well. We still have approximately 3 routes that we're working at switching stops from one route to another just because of load issues and time issues, but we are within 5 to 7 minutes of the time that we want them arriving at schools. They have been. So we are making strides to make it even quieter. Do you have any questions?
I'll just make a comment. I've had unsolicited comments from parents saying just how much better it is this year, unquestionably. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Lot less issues and just paradigm shift, actually. So
Yeah, in my 11 years that I've been here, this is the smoothest start. And I really feel it's attributed to a good, strong bus company that the school board approved to join in contract with. But I really, again, want to give kudos to Linda, because to have an in-house person who works for Heights to settle all the problems with parents, with teachers, the principals, lost kids, everything. She just puts her heart and soul into it and jumps right on it. And I've heard lots of positive comments about Columbia Heights Public Schools being on the buses. So it's those little things that bring the Heights pride to our transportation as well, and we're just really delighted.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for the much better report than other years. And what's so great is that it shows that we do take the complaints. These are very serious complaints and very serious issues, and we do take them seriously, and we're actually improving, doing a lot better. So that's great news.
Yeah.
all right. Yeah.
I just want to thank you as a parent. The buses are on time. The drivers are friendly. I always get a wave from the driver, which is very nice. I had kind of a little testy driver last year, so I appreciate that. And on a couple of occasions where I've had to call, I didn't say who I was, but I immediately got an answer, and that was very reassuring. That particular bus is running 7 minutes late, or something like that. Yes, we are en route. There's 2 other stops that have. And that has been, and then that was just the first 2 days, I think, and then after that, everything's been wonderful. So, I just, as a parent, thank you so much. What a wonderful job. It's so nice. Thank you.
All right.
And as a parent, there's nothing worse than not knowing where your student is. So, so that's really great that we're able to be responsive.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Come back with great news anytime. All right, next on our agenda this evening is the board will be presented with information on additional education space at Valley View.
Chair Bardella and members of the board, as we're looking at the educational space, I just want to say that Bill, I am going to walk through the PowerPoint that Bill presented at the last school board work study session. Principal Ford is here with me, as well as Nicole Hollaby, and we do have our resident architect as well. Mark Lentz is at the back, as in the front row. We're getting, if we could get the I think that there's, Mark was going to bring up a poster with the poster boards and just show you where the Carter Blue site was, so you have an idea of what the plan looks like. But as you know, this project really evolved from space needs, and we've been studying space needs for a number of years. And we made a conscious effort to say, let's do one at a time, so that we can see that the need is real and that what we have built in one area will work in another. And so if we start, the first thing that was reviewed and looked at was the K-12 enrollment history as projected over a period of time. And it looks like we're pretty much spot on when you look at where we were in 12-13, and then you look at where we are in 13-14. You can see the 12 is the dotted one going up. And now you look at this year, and I think that as we stand right now, we might even exceed some of those expectations overall with the district. I would like to say this is unique to us, but it's happening in all the districts surrounding us as well. I was at a superintendent's meeting yesterday afternoon with Mounds View, Roseville, Spring Lake Park, Fridley, and all of them. Spring Lake Park had just completed a round of building projects, and they are going to have to do additional into their elementaries because of the burst of children that are coming through. Fridley has just completed putting on 3 new additions to their 3 elementary schools. They did theirs all at once and are expected to complete them. Mounds View doesn't know where they're going to put their all-day, everyday kindergarten. And Roseville actually offered, they've taken over Harambe. They offered, they took over the EMID school, which was the integration school, and they're filling that, and they're thinking that they may, because of the little ones coming in, that they may have to be looking for a school site to actually build another school. So it seems to be in the water around the Northeast Metro region. If we flip to the next slide and really look at the Valley View predictions, if you look at the TV, you might be able to see it a little bit better than on there with the blue lines. But we are where we are. I just thought to give us an update, I would call on Nicole Hollaby, because we always say we wait for the whites of the eyes, but she counts that daily with the principals. And so, Nicole, if you wouldn't mind just talking a little bit specifically about Valley View and where we are today with their enrollment.
Thank you, Superintendent Kelly. Yes, the principals just love me because they get their daily reminders to get their whites of the eyes. What that means is the principals actually go into the classroom and count the children that are there, because we have enrollment through MARS, through our ties. Today, Valley View, whites of the eyes were 555 children. And I want to remind you that these buildings were basically, the elementary buildings were basically built with a capacity of 460 children. So as you can see, it's 95 kids more in Principal Fort's building than the building was designed for.
Would you like to tease out some of those numbers?
Sure.
Do you have them with you?
So just for interest, we pulled out how many of those are Columbia Heights residents out of that 555 that attend Valley View. And today it was 451 are residents of Columbia Heights. 73 are Choice is Yours students, and 31 open enroll from any other district except for Minneapolis, which is the Choice is Yours. 62 students, and I know I sign a lot of them because I approve all the boundary exceptions, but I didn't realize it was that many. 62 students are our residents, but not of the Valley View attendance area, and specifically request Valley View to attend. Now, these students aren't transported from where they live if they live in the North Park or Highland District, but the parents are committed to going to Valley View. And I'd like to share just several reasons when they fill out the boundary exception. Many are daycare at Valley View. Many of the open enrolled students, both Minneapolis and non-Minneapolis, as well as our resident students, the families have a daycare in the Valley View attendance. Every year, Kristen Stunkel and myself meet with some representatives of our community daycare providers, and they, many of them are clustered in the Valley View area. Some other reasons that parents choose to attend Valley View from both outside the district and our residents who choose Valley View, they've mentioned the uniforms. They've mentioned that they went to school at Valley View, or that their children used to go to school at Valley View, and perhaps then they've moved into the North Park area or Highland area, or moved to Minneapolis, but they used to live in the Valley View area, and that they really want their child to continue at Valley View. So I thought you'd be interested in kind of teasing out those numbers as to, out of those 555 kids, as you can see, very predominantly our residents, and lots of really positive, good reasons, like daycare and uniforms, and keeping their child in their home school for boundary exceptions and open enrollment.
In addition to that, and thank you, Nicole, Principal Fort would be too humble to mention this, but I will, and his staff really took it to heart when you asked principals to really increase residential enrollment. And so we had a meeting with TIES, and we received maps of where people that lived in the district but were not attending lived, and he actually went with his staff and went door to door and developed a flyer and reintroduced ourselves to the community, and that's something that they're continuing to do. So this didn't really happen by accident. It's some of it is with a lot of hard work, and so I want to thank Principal Ford and his staff for that. Continuing on, though, in the next slide, I'm going to show you the Highland Elementary project, because Bill did, and I want to walk through it, because what we're really talking about is a replication project here tonight for Valley View. With Highland Elementary, what we found is over 80% of our students at Highland were walking or taking the bus to that school. And then some of the others were coming from within the district, but for whatever reason wanted to be at Highland. And so we started there first, and we said, let's see if we can hold that enrollment and fill. When I looked at Michelle's numbers today with the proposed addition, she was at 538. And so that is even a little bit more than what we projected when we started for this year looking. And when we looked at that building, we said we need additional classroom space. And I want to remind the board that those of you that were on the board for a series of time, is that when our original kindergarten enrollment started going up, we only had 2 kindergartens in each building. And then as time went on, we had added a 3rd and then a 4th. But we were in statutory operating debt, so we took over regular classrooms without the additional space. And MDE allowed us to do that at the time because, first of all, we were in statutory operating debt, there was no money. And then we were flat funded through the state. And so we've been allowed to do that, but it's by regulation, we don't have the square footage that we need. So with the Highland edition, it actually allowed us to acknowledge that we have not only 4 but 5 kindergarten sections, and to give them the adequate square footage that they need, plus the toileting facilities, because as many of you that took the Highland tour realized that the little ones would have to go down to toileting facilities that were far away, which creates an issue sometimes, and that were perhaps a little too tall for them as well. So in working with the architects, it was thought that what I like to call an early learning incubator would be added to the back of that building, and it was really acknowledging the 5 kindergarten spaces that we have and adding the pre-K program, the 4-year-olds over there, so that early learning could be a mixed grade level, and the teachers could get to know the students at an early age. If you go to the next slide, you will see the interior of the building that will look quite familiar. And really with the kindergarten incubator and the early learning incubator being allowed at the back end of the building, it freed up 4 regular classroom spaces, and in addition to that, it allowed us to take art and science out of the classroom spaces that they were gobbling up, and to actually give them the square footage and the storage space and the curricular space to give their programs. And early on the board, when we did the science adoption, probably a good 8 to 10 years ago now, took a stand that we would continue to have science labs in our elementary buildings if we were going to really be ready for 21st century learning. At that time, there was a discussion of portables, and I've had members that had some questions about that, and so we went forward and looked up the notes, and this was from really our architectural firm, so thank you. I'm going to just talk about a few of them tonight so you know why we did not consider portables for that project and not for this one either. One of the most important ones that was important then but even more important now is student safety. And that whenever you have portables, they're not secure as well as a main building. They stand outside, and with the type of construction, it's very difficult to integrate the building lockdown system into portables. It was something that maybe in the 80s or in the 50s that we didn't have to think about, but we do have to think about now. Portables provide no bad weather shelter. And so there's a need to go outside to get back into an existing building to be safe. In addition, there are now new rules that you have to provide plumbing, sewer, water, HVAC. So you have the same upfront cost as a permanent structure, but there's no savings there. We have to lay a foundation, and that always gives you multiple additions of site work across on the grounds. And we would have had to connect them directly to the existing building, and local building officials would decide if we could do this and where we could place them. Handicapped accessibility is another big issue. There needs to be ramps and additional paving to make sure that all students can access them. And one of the things that we saw probably most notably in St. Francis is that portables are very susceptible to moisture problems and mold and mildew. But just the way they're constructed, and if you have a few good rainy seasons, as St. Francis learned, there was leakage within their portables, and not only because they had to wait to pass their levy, they put in portables, and they thought it would be a short-term solution for until they could afford a more permanent one. And with the severe rains, it leaked, mold grew, and they had to completely renovate the portables in addition to planning for how they were going to do their next construction project. HVAC systems, the long-term operational costs could be more, and it depends upon the efficiency of the equipment that you're putting in, but it's not like when you're building the real deal. And when we look at the cost of it all, the cost for portables could be as much as new construction if the requirements are met, up to about 85%. And so for us at that point in time, if we were going to put in almost 85% of the cost of the projects, that we decided that it would be much better to have permanent facilities. And a point that Principal Ford and Principal DeWitt always like to make is that if we are in the mode of raising heights to new heights, that increasing our buildings and grounds and our facility uplifts is as important as how we do them as what we do. So those were all considerations, and I want to thank Mark for providing us both then and now with those things on portables. In the next slide, you see, for those that haven't been over there, and I think you all have, there's the back of the building, what we actually got for that amount of money as it attached to the Family Center. And there's a before the addition, I think Bill put in, which is the next slide, and then after. And it fits so uniquely back there and has such a great look, and it is so conducive to the environment around that you wonder why you hadn't done it before. It's great. They're enjoying it. As Bill said in the work study session, we are just thinking of replicating this project at Valley View. The interior may look different as far as colors and textures and things because of the teachers involved in actually designing the classrooms, but structurally it would be about the same. Which brings me to the proposed addition at Valley View. And that, too, as you look at it, will look familiar, that we proposed to put it on the back of the buildings. It, too, would be 5 kindergarten rooms, and it would be an early learning 4-year-old room as well. The 4-year-olds, as I have said multiple times, and so has Bill, are really up here in the Family Center still. They're the only buildings that doesn't have an embedded 4-year-old program. And that takes up space for our 3-year-old programs up here at the Family Center. So, and Principal Ford is would be very pleased to have them back in his building, or in his building. So, That's what will go on there. And then when we do that, that would also free up the kindergarten spaces that currently exist for what we did over here, which is art and science. Principal Fort this year has already gobbled up his entire media center. Those of you that were over there could see, and the computer room. And so it's kind of like Mother Hubbard has too many children for the shoe. The next slide really shows the existing south end of the building. And at first, they were concerned about grading, but if you can look at the back of the building, the architects have assured us that grading will not be an issue. And it'll probably be as easy, if not easier, than the Highland project to do. So no hills will be in the way. It's just going straight out. If you look at the next slide, from the inside, you will see that the specialized areas at the top will be exactly like Highland, and that will have all the specialities, as I like to call them, at the front of the building, and they're usually the loudest and the most active. And then the academic wing would be in the middle, and then the incubator at the back. And so when you look at the proposed next picture, you see that it sits back there. There's a mechanical slide, a mechanical shed. I'm not sure what we call it, a mechanical building. Yeah. A house? Yeah, okay. At the top of the building, and that is to house all the things that you saw on the Highland tour as far as energy efficiency and things like that for heating and cooling. The project construction costs have not changed since the last work study session, so if you take a look at this, and I'm just going to have you click through all of them right away. When you look at that, you have the construction costs, the professional fees, the building permits, the fixtures and equipment, technology and security, commissioning, and the contingency fund. And I know that if Bill were here, he would be saying we build in a contingency fund because you never know what you're going to find when you start digging things up or having to attach things. And so it may not be spent, but it's better to be wise than to come back and say we're short on money. This project would come in at about the same price as the Highland, which you see as the bottom line there. And when we're looking at that, Highland Edition came in under budget because we had such a great deal on construction costs when we were putting it on. The economy was poor. We could I shouldn't say it was poor, but it wasn't not as robust as it could be. Might be a better way of saying that. And so the construction trades and stuff were willing for work. Right now, although things are picking up, interest rates are good, and we think that people are still looking to do construction projects at reasonable rates. So we think the collective we, and it's mostly Bill and Mark, that think we can come in at budget, if not a little under. So that is what you're looking at as far as the total cost there. The financing is not any different than what we were talking about at the work study session. And if you just click through all of those, Nicole, the one that Bill is really leaning toward, and if he were here tonight, would be saying whoops, back one, thank you. The 15-year bonds at $280,000, and I think he would do that because that is something that if we were to take the levy authority from the Highland building and exercise that, which we already have, so that wouldn't delay the process, that we could sell bonds and we could finance that building as a pay-as-we-go model out of our general fund. And so it'd be easier to do that at $280,000 over 15 years than 10-year bonds at $360,000. That's a little steeper. Now if you would flip, Nicole, when he was looking at the levy effects on a 15-year lease, on a $100,000 home, it would be $12.81 a year, so about $1.07 a year, a month on that. And one of the things that Bill and I were talking about this last week was that depending upon where we are with our lease levy and our levy in general, that if we have, if some things roll off and we are able to have a dip in what we're charging, that we could probably have a dip in our actual taxes levied against the community and still not be back up to where we were and build the building. So that is all if we act all of this before in this year, in this semester, as I want to say. In the next slide, you really have the recommendations. The recommendations are enrollment shows the additional space is warranted. Principal Fort has a lot of special education facilities that are increasing in his building, which creates a space crunch for him. And so, as Nicole always says, we're growing a magnet, but we do have little ones that need facilities, and this will free up some space for them or allow them to stay in the places that they are. We would like to add for the 5 kindergartens and 1 early childhood classroom to the Valley View Elementary as an incubator. We'd like to finance the project with 15-year capital facilities bonds, and levy the current lease authority, and what Bill would say over and over again, if we're gonna do any of this, time is of the essence this time, because the children are here and they're cramped. The costs will go up with construction costs, and so will the interest rates. So locking this down is why we're bringing it to you both in work study as an information item. And then what we would like to do is bring it back at our board, at the next board meeting as an action item. Bill has provided a timeline, which I think, Nicole, you have, thank you, that if we could have a board-approved project in October, we could submit that for review and comment in November to MDE, and that could take up to, it's 90 days, if I'm correct on that. We would then work very hard, the collective we, because that would be mostly the architects and the folks on the ground, with the specifications. The good thing is we know what we're doing because we've done it once already. We would bid the project, and we'd like to start construction at the latest in June. If frost goes out of the ground and if things would work at the back of the building like they did at Highland, I think that they, because they had summer academy to contend with up here, but down at Valley View, we don't, and so we could work even faster with that. We'd really like to keep our fingers crossed and say if we start, we'd like to be able to be into the new spaces by December, at the end of December, or start in January, and they'd be available for students. And then we'd follow the same model that we would remodel the 2 existing kindergartens over the course of that year, and then as much as you see at Highland, they would be ready in the summer. So that would be the spring of 2015. And so the last picture I believe that Bill left you with tonight is what the project would look like. And one thing I forgot to say is at the back there is an existing road now that would be covered up by the building, but there is another road to the right, and I think you can see it on the schematic, that gives access to everything. So I don't know why the road exists to begin with, but we do have access on both sides of the building. And so that really concludes the report for tonight, unless you have any additional questions.
Questions, comments?
Just one question. Where are you putting 550 kids? Because I think the last time we talked, you were like 531, so you said you got some closet space we don't know about?
No, we're accepting them at the door when they come and putting them in the classrooms, and we're glad they're with us. I guess the other thing that I would say is our tradition with our enrollment is we generally start slow. I mean, this has been the pattern. This is my 4th year. We generally start slow with our enrollment, and we pick up students throughout the year. Last year, we started at the school year around in the 470s, and we ended the school year 511. So we're obviously, considerably up from that. If that pattern were to continue, the sense of urgency that you have with the timeline is appropriate, because we could use the space. We're excited about the potential opportunity for a renovated facility.
Does it look like, I mean, with the rate of growth right now, are we looking at perhaps, closing some of the grades to enrollment?
I'd like to.
Do you have room?
As Nicole just stated, I don't like to, just because of that. The door knocking that we did, there was like over 150 families we went to last spring, and we wanted the Columbia Heights residents to attend our school, and we feel like some of that is as a result of that. But that's up to the superintendent and Nicole Hallaby, student services, at what point, because we also have a reasonable class sizes still. We're at 23 sections, which is the highest we've ever been. I think last year we were at 21 sections. So when it all pans out as far as number of students in a classroom, with the exception of that fourth grade that you saw, that was part of the class was down in the media center, we still have pretty decent class sizes.
Okay, good.
I guess on that point too, I was surprised and happy to learn that 450 of the students come from our community at your school. So it looks like the bulk of the students are from Columbia Heights. And I understand if we closed open enrollment, we might lose some funding. We couldn't really do that for the Choices Yours program. That would have negative implications. Is that correct, Superintendent Kelly?
That, and I'm going to add to that we would also have to close. And Nicole, maybe you'd like to speak on how we might have to close to our own residents in what.
Right. Two of the concerns when we look at, as you know, and members of the board who've been on for a while, to take the consideration to close to open enrollment is a very serious consideration, because also you're then closing the options for boundary exceptions for our own residents. So if all of a sudden your daycare switches, or you move into Columbia Heights and you find this wonderful daycare lady that's in the Valley View zone, and you can't go to that daycare because it's closed. So it's really something that we consider very carefully, and not only for this year, but for the ramification for future years. At one point, we had to close before you built the kindergartens at Highland Kindergarten, and families came in with multiple kids. They started saying, where do we want our kids together, so let's go to North Park or Valley View or whatever, because that was closed that year to Highland. Well, they may never come back then to Highland. And then the last comment I want to make is that the academy now is robust at over 700 kids, which is fantastic. And, the families come in, and I come that way to work every day. And I see the families drop their kids off at Valley View, and they're waving, then the academy kids come and they're waving back and forth with their uniforms, and it just feels like one big family there. And we certainly, probably, unless it's really huge, don't want to close Valley View because they may not come back to the academy. So, there's a lot of considerations that the board has to go through.
Just to piggyback on that, is there a report or something we can get information on? What are the capacities the district has per grade level per site? Is something like that exist?
We have capacities you have the board ratio of 24 to 1 for the elementaries and 30 to 1 for the secondaries. The capacity for the buildings at the elementaries, it was 460, but now I believe at Highland it is 470. No, it's I can't remember what our capacity is for that. Do you remember?
Oh, I'd have to look at
I'm putting you on the spot, but we have a different capacity right there. But the elementaries, for as long as I can remember, were 460. And Highland has the additional square footage, so it would have a different capacity right now.
Okay.
The capacity rate for what we were shooting for at Columbia Academy, because they have additional programs and things from back when the schools were first formed, was 700, but we really would have a realistic capacity of 900 if we really wanted to push it. And that would be, as Mary called me, or Principal Busman called me, and she said they have so many sixth graders that they're going to have to start rearranging some classrooms down there. I said, not your turn, Mary. Working with elementaries, you still have room in that building. Wherever you are, Mary, telling a story. And then at the high school, that's a harder one to call. I think where we've pegged it for the high school, where we would like to be, is 900. And a lot of things have happened at the high school in years past. When it was the 60s and 70s, you had really, really large classes, and they even went on split shifts, I believe, over there. But some of the wings of the high school have been taken up by special education needs and transition needs, and so when we're looking at that, it would be nice to. We're shooting for 9. You could probably do, if this growth continues, we could probably squeeze in 1,200.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I guess along those lines too, something that I explored with Superintendent Kelly is the possibility of converting space in the high school, since we have extra space right now, but I understand that that would probably be more expensive than just building new classrooms.
Remember, Landwehr and I had a robust conversation about that, and it's something that we've explored before, when when we were looking at doing an ALC, expanding the ALC at the high school, and because what I like to say is that the real estate at the high school that we'd have to convert would be art and science rooms and things like that that are very expensive to put and relocate it somewhere else. And so we couldn't do it for the ALC, and if you were looking ahead 3 years, it would be a very expensive short-term solution. And we also have issues when we do parent surveys and satisfaction surveys. I know that Member Palmer was talking to me before the meeting, is that many times elementary parents or middle school parents do not feel quite as comfortable sending their children to a high school environment, even though it might be segregated. We have done many different kinds of surveys, and so where we are, if we're forging forward, we want to be cost effective in both the short and long term, but we also want to keep the enrollment we have, because people around us are now building the spaces where our students could go.
And I also asked about the operating costs, because it's more than just the construction costs. Once we have the additional space, we have to maintain it. And I think the answer is that since we'll have more students and more capacity, that will offset those maintenance costs.
Yes, because they bring in revenue, as Principal Fort said to me this afternoon. Well, they will build, but they will bring in the revenues with them, which is true. And also, I'd like to think that the architects and Bill and Buildings and Grounds are looking at more energy efficient kinds of things for the buildings, and with the replacement of some of this, just the systems things that we have. So that would be cost savings as well.
And speaking of energy, I understand that these will be air conditioned.
Yes, yeah, it's a little different than we did at Highland, the way the systems are tied in. This will have its own air conditioning system, because we're not tapping into the adjacent buildings.
Okay.
But it sounds like, talking to the engineers, mechanical, electrical will be cheaper on the Valley View than it was on Highland, just with the situation we have there.
And I would imagine that would be important for kindergartners to have
Yes.
comfortable classrooms, especially. Thank you.
All right. Questions?
I guess I'd like to hear from the community. I know this is a fast turnaround if we're voting on it in October. If there are any community members who want to weigh in, I would certainly love to hear about that. I know we just built the Highland addition, and now it'll be another addition. So I'd like to hear the community's feedback.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right. Move on to our action items. First action item is the board will be asked to approve membership in the 916 Education Foundation. Nicole Helby.
Thank you, Chair Bardell, members of the board, Superintendent Kelly. Usually they say it's the Bill Holmgren show, but it's maybe the Nicole Holloway show today. Yeah, I get my 15 seconds of fame, Thank you for having me. 916 Education Foundation membership is really important. They've kept it the same cost for the last 4 years. It's $250 for our district to belong as a member to the Education Foundation. They do a dinner with silent auction once a year, and then they do a big golf tournament once a year to also fundraise. It's an excellent foundation that gives lots of scholarships to the member districts. Every year, our students here from Columbia Heights have received scholarships from this foundation. And last year, as every other year, it's exceeded the $250 that we pay for membership. So it's money well spent, better than interest rates at the bank right now. So I highly recommend that we renew our membership.
All right, do I have a motion?
I'll move that forward.
I'll second that.
Motion by Missy, second by Laura. Discussion on agenda
I
item?
just say, according to the letter we received, it's about $20,000 return on that, so
Yeah.
significantly.
Yeah, it's, All right. Hearing no more discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion's carried. Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you.
All right. Next on our action items is the annual report on curriculum instruction and student achievement. Mr. Dwayne Burkus and Casey Mann.
Chair Bardell, Superintendent Kelly, members of the board, pleased to be here again to announce our annual report is about ready to be sent out. We are working hard at it. The big change this year, obviously, with our annual report is it's not just teaching and learning, trying to whip this together. We have Director Mann working with us, and I have to say it's pretty nice. Incredible to have someone with his talent, experience, helping guide this process. Our goal with the annual report is to be able to communicate what we are doing in our school district, why we do the things that we do, and then how we're doing, how is it going? So there are some mandatory pieces that have to be in this report that the state requires us to send out. That includes things like our student achievement report. There is some data still that's coming out this Friday, so we really don't even have all the data yet for that. So that's one piece that we did not include in your board packet, but that will be part of this report. We'll host that part online, and then we will be mailing out the report on our programming. What do we do with our kids? What are the many wonderful things that kids can do here, those worlds of opportunities that we try to create for our students? And then what is our focus? What is it that we really are trying to get to? And so we've been working with Casey, with Director Mann, on this, and he's here tonight to just show you a little bit of his good work, and you'll see, I think, how things are looking pretty good with his touch on this.
Chair Bardell, directors, Superintendent Kelly. First of all, I apologize. I've been sick for the last week, so if I don't sound too good, there's a reason. Building on what Director Burkus said, we're going to produce an annual report that meets the Minnesota Department of Education requirements, as well as tell our stories, which is part of our strategic plan. We ensure that our report aligns with each of our 6 core values, the Vision 2015, and our strategic directions. And again, we're educating our greater community so that they can make informed decisions towards supporting our schools. And at the same time, we're also developing an updated marketing image of Columbia Heights Public Schools, with the annual report acting as the lead. We had previously shared with you the rough draft. That content is pretty much ready to go with some tweaking here and there. What I'm going to show you tonight is what the next steps are and a glimpse of the initial draft. It will be a 16-page full-color comprehensive report. We're going to have additional specifics which will be available on the website. Just mention that we got a couple extra photos that I need to take. Our production goal is within 2 weeks. We're coordinating with the MDE on that. Again, mailing a copy to each resident within our district. And we're going to get extra copies so that we can make those available to realtors, chambers of commerce, government agencies, churches, etc., as well as, of course, having them here in the placement center and with at our schools. Please don't take that weird looking color on the right as being that. For some reason, when I transferred this file over, it came out really weird. That actually is our colors. This is the front cover of what we're looking at. This is a collaborative effort, not only with Director Burkus, but also huge thanks to his team. They have been really supportive and helpful with this. And the title is Creating College and Career-Ready Graduates, and you'll see that little guy is in our early childhood education, and starting out at the earliest, leading right up to graduation. And as we turn to the inside, I just blew this up. That's one of our little guys. oh, he's already gone, sporting his Valley View shirt. And all the pictures that are in here are our people. And we're taking it to a different level. What Director Burkus and his team did in the past was really, truly amazing for not having the practical skills for some of this stuff. What we're doing is we're just building on it. So in this case, this kind of gives you an idea visually. We're going to have success stories, but actually they changed that per my request. And so that actually is going to be heights. Oh gosh, I'm having memory lapse. I'll remember it. I apologize.
Yeah.
It's one of our lines, and I forgot it. But this is how it will look side by side. And then when you go on to the website, and again, this is still being built, is that there will be a section set aside for the annual report, and you can be able to click on the link, the graphic, which will take you to this full report, and then the links that are underneath it will take you into deeper data. And on my part, any questions, please? Or our part?
When do we go live with the links? When is that going to be up?
October 15th would be the date that we'd want the website to have the materials all there. So, and then we'll be hopefully mailing things out week after that, and in homes then in October.
All right.
So I guess if we are asking then for the board's approval to move forward with our publishing of this, and of course there'll be some revising and editing that will take place prior to that, but with your approval we would move forward then and distribute this to our community.
Motion?
So
I'll second that.
Motion by Ted, second by Laura. Discussion? Yeah, Ted.
I just want to say, I think, isn't this required by statute that we submit this every year?
It is, yep, yep.
It looks like you're putting it in a very user-friendly form.
I know as soon as I sit down, I'm going to remember that name. I am so embarrassed. It's one of our lines, and that's what happens when you get the.
Well, you know, it never happens to any of us.
Yeah.
Of course it does.
Yes, I just want to say it's a great way to tell our story too. You know, it's always important to get this information into the community, and another good opportunity to do that.
Well, I will tell you that, you know, I'm still fairly new. This has been really a lot of fun for me because I've been meeting a lot of staff and people in the community, and it is just really cool to be able to hear these stories and to meet these people. It's like our high school senior over here that went to Princeton.
Right.
What a dynamic young man he is. Just a wonderful story, and he's just featured on PBS NewsHour. That's great stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad you mentioned the PSEO program as well. My daughter has benefited for 2 years, and it's a great part of our education here. So,
All right. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well done. All right. Next on our agenda, we're going to talk about milk bids.
While Gary is sitting down, I would just like to say again that Gary has been graciously fact-finding on some of these things, and he is our manager of accounting services and will be filling in for Bill on this.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Kelly, Chair Bardell, and members of the board. Next action item, as you said, is the approval of the milk bid. You approved going out for bids a while back.
Right.
Bids were received. You've got the results in the background information. There was one bid. It happens to be our current provider of milk, and we recommend approval.
All right. We have a motion to move that forward.
So moved.
second.
Motion by Missy, second by Ted. Any discussion on milk bid? Questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Did the bid go up from what we're currently paying, or?
I talked to Renetta this morning, and the bid is down from current prices.
Okay.
Nice.
That was my question.
Oh, okay. Well, good. All right. Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you very much. Thanks for pinch hitting tonight.
Yeah, thank you. It's
We
a
appreciate
pleasure
it.
being here.
Welcome.
Thank you.
All right, next on our agenda, we're going to talk about property insurance renewal. We're going to have Steve McAlpin join up there.
Good evening, Chair Bardell, Superintendent Kelly, members of the board. I'd like to echo those thoughts. My well wishes go out to Bill as well, and nothing against Gary, but I've enjoyed the Bill Holmgren show for many, many years up here. We'll be winging it without him, but our thoughts are with him. I'm happy to be back here again this year to present the property and casualty insurance renewal proposal. And the proposal in your agenda this evening is with Riverport Insurance Company. And actually, Riverport is our current insurance company. Riverport is a Berkeley company, and most of you know this, but Berkeley has actually received the Minnesota School Board Association recommendation or endorsement for, I think it's close to 30 years. So they've been a good partner company, not only with my agency, but for many, many districts in Minnesota. With that said, though we were due to test the market, so Bill and I did bring the insurance bids out to two really big players in the insurance industry, one being Travelers, the other one is Indiana, which is owned by Liberty Mutual, a huge insurance carrier with schools. So at the end of our bidding process, Travelers wasn't much of a factor. They were over 10%, so not even in the ballpark. Indiana Insurance, they actually did come in a little more competitive than Riverport. However, they had difficulty matching some significant coverages, deductibles, some of the liability coverages with medical payments to students, and data compromise coverage. A couple of significant coverages they just could not provide. So the recommendation that Bill and I had is to actually renew with Riverport. And without going into too many details, I know it's 8:45 on a Tuesday evening here, and I know you've got all the details, so I'd be happy to answer any questions, but I'd like to just point out that the only major changes, I guess, were a 3% property insurance. We had to take an inflationary increase for the property values for all the schools and business personal property contents of the school. And in addition to that, we did have to factor in the increase with Highland Elementary last year. So that was one factor with the property rate. And that's pretty much it. I guess I'd like to answer any questions that you may have regarding any of the coverages in the proposal.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, what was our premium last year?
Last year, it was actually just under 94,000.
Okay.
So we definitely did see a fairly large premium increase. We haven't seen this kind of increase in actually probably about 12 years.
Well, if I recall correctly, I think we actually, the premium dropped. Was it dropped or, yeah, it dropped last year, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember.
I don't know if it dropped or we got more and it cost the same. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, I know it didn't.
It was a better deal.
I know it didn't drop, but it wasn't a significant increase at all. And actually, probably premiums have started to sneak up the last couple of years industry-wide. Obviously, the factors in Minnesota primarily, we're seeing property losses due to catastrophic events, storms. Unfortunately, litigation is creeping its ugly head into general liability and school board legal liability. We're seeing quite the swing in those areas, and it's no coincidence that that's actually where most of the increase actually fell, in the general liability and the school leaders legal.
How much is our how much coverage do we have under the umbrella?
Yeah, the umbrella's actually an excess $1 million of coverage.
Okay.
So we've got, underneath the umbrella, we've actually got the statutory limits of $500,000 per occurrence and $3 million with an aggregate limit. So that, I mean, technically the limits are $1.5 million per occurrence and $3 million on an aggregate. But in Minnesota, claims by statute are actually limited to $500,000.
Okay.
So on top of that, we've got $1 million excess that, the board agreed to purchase at probably 2-3 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, Ted.
So it looks like this is about the same coverage as we've had in the past, except for inflation.
Yeah, same coverages exactly. We haven't added anything other than just the increased property values.
Okay. And just for the public, it's about $6,000 more than what we paid
Yep.
last year.
Correct.
And it is an A+ rated company, so it's very sound.
Yeah, Berkeley is, one of the most sound insurance carriers. They're a conglomerate of many, many companies, so basically holding the strongest financial, rating from best, that can be achieved, I guess.
All
I'd
right.
like to move this forward.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion by Missy, second by Lori. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you, gentlemen.
Yep, thank you very much.
All right, next on our agenda is the preliminary levy certification.
Thank you, Chair Bardell and members of the board. Tonight I'm presenting the preliminary information for the Pay 214 levy, which will fund school operations for the 214-215 school year. As you can see, and we've talked about this before, student enrollment throughout the district has been on the increase. That's why we've been adding on to some of the buildings. Here's the next slide, just shows some of the numbers. Now, the tax capacity, because of the real estate market and everything, has been declining over the years. And the tax capacity is derived by taking the tax rate times the property value. Then the sales ratio is developed by the Department of Revenue. And what they do is they take the assessor's valuation of the property, compare it to what that property actually sells, and then derive a ratio, which is then taken times the net tax capacity, get the adjusted net tax capacity, so that districts and cities and that aren't affected by an overzealous assessor or differences in the assessed valuation or estimates. I put this slide in here showing the formula allowance and tax rate. You can see the formula allowance has been increasing. For a number of years it was stable, but this year we have a 0.0035 state tax rate, which we haven't had since 2001. Prior to 2001, there was tax rates and along with the formula allowance, so that there was a levy aid mix, and the tax rate back then was a lot larger than 0.35%. Along with that, if we look back, you can see that there's a large increase between fiscal year 14 and fiscal year 15. Part of that increase is due to the fact that the state decreased a lot of the weighting factors on our pupil units, so they're bringing that back. The actual increase on the funding formula was 1.5%, 1.5%. So the difference is adjusting things because of the decrease in the weighting factors. The only one that increased was regular kindergarten all day. The tax rate that I just talked about, the 0.35% times the net adjusted tax capacity rate, gives its student achievement levy of $65,989. That is part of the general ed revenue. Failure to levy the $65,989 means the state would not send their state aid of $25.8 million. So it's imperative that this particular levy component is levied, and the State Department of Education will not let any school districts not levy that. You can see some other changes between 2013 and 14. They've changed the referendum revenue a little bit by, we've got the board approved $300 per pupil unit, and then they've also created a local location equity revenue levy. That all comes out of the referendum. So this is all part of the top part referendum levy. However, I put this slide in to show that we're also getting a little different mix in state aid. So you can see that the referendum aid and the equity aid increased for 2014 levy, which kind of offset some of that levy decrease that I just showed you on the previous slide here. General designated levy, I break it down into the general levy, designated levy, and operating capital levies. And you can see that there are some differences here. Overall, the designated levies are decreasing $131,797. The operating capital levy, the lease levy is increasing, but a lot of the other ones are decreasing. We've got our health and safety programs are pretty good, so there wasn't a lot of need for the health and safety levy this year. That levy is a cumulative levy over the years, so as we do projects, they compare what was what the actual cost to what's total levy, and there'll be adjustments to bring us up even. If we spend more, spend less, there'll be levy adjustments over the years. Community education levy in total is increasing about $64,000. And the debt service levy has a decrease of $335,000. Part of that, there's about a $49,000 increase in our debt service excess levy over last year. And that is, when we levy for the debt service, we levy 5% more than what's needed to take care of tax delinquencies and that. And as the money comes in, the debt service fund can increase. The state doesn't allow us to increase it too much, so they like to give it back to taxpayers, and that goes back as a negative levy adjustment. Mm-hmm. And then also we had the refunding bonds that were sold this last year. It gave some additional savings. The total levy for the district, the proposed levy, last year was $8.5 million. This year it's about $7.3. Got about a $1.2 million decrease, which is about 14.56%. Now the levy certification forms are still being revised. I just got another revision today. It's about $15,000 higher than this. And that's why when we recommend, we're going to recommend that we levy a maximum, because by doing that, when the levy changes, we don't have to call a special session of the board to approve the difference between what was approved and the new levy. The important date to remember here is December 10th. That'll be a regular board meeting. It'll also be the Truth and Taxation hearing starting at 7 p.m. And the adoption of the final levy will be at that time too. Levy recommendation, like I just said, there's been some adjustments being made on the levy from the State Department of Education. Enrollment will get firmed up early, later, usually in January. Budget picture will become more concrete in November, and we ask the board to pass a motion for the maximum levy.
All right. A motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Missy, second by Laura. Discussion? Yeah.
So the maximum then is this, is that the 7,287,000?
Right,
Okay,
currently.
okay, but that would be the maximum that we could levy.
Well, if the levy goes up, like it just went up another 15,000 today from when I put this report together till when I looked out at the website just before the meeting here, there was another run. So it could go up a little higher. We don't anticipate it going up significantly higher, but it could go up a little higher by doing maximum. That increase is already included then in the final levy. The final levy that you certify in December, you can always decrease that, but you can't increase it.
Okay, so the levy could be greater than 7,287,000
Correct.
if we pass this.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, John?
So, just to, I guess, repeat, we're not levying a specific amount, we're just saying the maximum.
Maximum, right.
Great, yeah.
Does this include the new construction possibility?
Not Valley View construction possibility. It does include Highland.
Okay. So would that be a separate budget item we'd have to approve then, if we decide to do that?
That would be probably next year's levy.
Next year's, okay.
Or depending on how we handle it, it may not be.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, from the way I understood it, we were just going to take the levy authority that we had for the Highland project and just apply that to Valley View, because we're already paying Highland out of the general
General
fund.
fund.
That's correct.
That's correct.
Yeah, pay attention.
Right.
That's already technically approved if we wanted to do it.
Yep,
So then it
is.
wouldn't be a separate vote to approve that?
All right, any further questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next on our agenda, and it's not deja vu, school board evaluation model, and that's all of us, but I'll take the lead on this. Basically, what we need to do is, at the last meeting, we approved to amend it to 12 questions, but we didn't actually approve the evaluation model. So I'll make a motion to move the evaluation model as amended forward.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Scott, second by Laura, discussion.
Yeah, I guess I'd rather, well, a statement versus a question, I guess, at this point, just for clarification, maybe for the general public, how this came to be, that, the 12 questions and why we didn't actually remember to approve the actual evaluation itself. At our last meeting, and I expressed some confusion, and I guess I want to explain that and where I was coming from and where I'm actually still at with it. I'll start by saying I think the questions are really good questions, and they're probably worth sitting down and talking about. How they came to be on the evaluation is where my confusion was, and I know last meeting, Laura, you were puzzled as to what the big deal was, what's wrong with the questions, and it was never, for me, it was never about the questions. It was about how we got to those questions. And I'll recap what I understand have taken place, and if I missed something, please let me know. But the way I understood it is that we formed a subcommittee to put together an evaluation for the school board. I don't even know how many meetings did you guys have?
3, I think.
2, I think, yeah.
Two or three meetings?
Yeah. Was it
Okay.
2 or 3?
At some point, it was decided to bring an evaluation to the board as a recommendation, and we started in a work session. We had some extended conversation about it, and at the time when we were talking, we were presented with 10 questions and said, this is our evaluation, and then we were given a packet that was called Self-Evaluation Additional Points to Ponder. So we got that, and when we sat down and we talked, there was discussion about how we would utilize each. We'd do the evaluation, and then we would take this, and we could use this if we wanted to actually maybe think more in depth about a specific question. At the board meeting, when we were going to decide on the evaluation as far as approving it, a comment was made that it just occurred to me that there's 2 more questions we should add. And that was where my confusion was, is we had the subcommittee, we had these meetings, we had discussions at the work session, and nowhere along the way did it come up that we were gonna add questions to the evaluation. Some of the comments that were made, and again, I don't disagree with it, it seems reasonable to add these to the discussion. And my question goes back to why didn't we have this discussion at the work session? And I know, and this is my own personal opinion, but I'll say it again, is that, you know, I'll quote Laura, it didn't feel right. The way the questions, to me, they felt like they were being snuck in at the last second. And I'm not saying that was the intention, I'm just telling you my personal feelings on how I felt things kind of transpired. To infer, and I think it was mentioned at one time, that the reason the questions didn't get brought up at the work session, it was an oversight. And I struggle with that. The people that were involved were at all the meetings. They're obviously all very, you know, put a lot of time and effort into it, and some are passionate about it. I struggle with it being an oversight, so now we need to sneak it in. Or added, I apologize. We're talking about doing an evaluation of ourselves, you know, and how do we work together, and how well do we work together. And quite honestly, I find it somewhat ironic that one of the questions that we've added is about trust. And I welcome that discussion. I truly, truly do when we get to that point and we start talking about some of these things. But that's where my confusion came from, is not whether or not they were good questions, it's how we got to those. And we form subcommittees, and that doesn't mean that we can't have discussions at board meetings and look at tweaking things and stuff like that. That's absolutely what we're supposed to do. But for that stuff to never have even been mentioned as being part of the evaluation at the work session, that's where my confusion came from. So again, I support the questions and the current evaluation. I just needed to try and at least better explain myself from the last meeting, so.
I just have a real quick comment.
Sure.
I believed it was somewhat of an oversight because I do remember speaking about these subjects at the work study session. I guess I wasn't aware that they were not going to be included in the top 10, but I'm glad we've added them.
Okay,
And,
yeah, and that's.
you know, and I really do think that the two questions in particular are going to have, I think we're going to get some very productive information out of them.
Yeah. And again, I absolutely think the questions will be good, and I remember talking about the points to ponder at that, but I also specifically remember it being said, these are our 10 questions, this is additional information, and Lori brought up at the last meeting, it says other discussion items, inferring to me that these first 10 were part of the evaluation, and these were additional things we could look at. So again, if I misunderstood something, I don't buy the oversight piece. I just think that it should have come up earlier on, so. But anyway.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
And that motion carries. All right. Next on our agenda is school board out-of-state travel. That's me again. At the last work study, we discussed amending or limiting the number of school board members to attend the National School Board Association Conference. And right now, the motion is approval for up to 2 board members to attend. So do I have a motion to move this forward?
I'll move that forward.
Second.
Motion by Laura, second by John. Discussion. Yep.
I guess that part of the discussion was, what do other districts do? And this was more in line with other districts do. The administration did take a survey.
Yep.
So.
That's true. Yep.
In the conversation at the work session, I felt comfortable with the fact that we discussed as a group that we would determine a fair rotation so that, you know, different people each year would have the opportunity there. So, and it is, as Ted says, it really is. There's groups that are sending no one. There's some are just one every now and then up to 2. So, I think in keeping with that philosophy of, you know, what are others doing, I think it's a good idea.
All right. Any further discussion?
Yes.
Yeah.
I also want to say, I think we talked about getting the most value we can for the conference. So this also is in line with that discussion too. This
Right.
motion.
Any others? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion has carried. Thank you very much. All right. Next on our agenda, we are actually going to go into closed session. In accordance with Minnesota Statute 13D.05, the board will adjourn to closed session for the purpose of discussing the superintendent evaluation. Okay,
That or she's looking for a ride home.
we're coming back to open session at 9:53, after opening up from the closed session, discussing the superintendent evaluation. Are there board topics this evening?
I just want to mention that October 4th is homecoming. Please come out, support, and watch all the activities that are happening around the school district.
Okay, yeah.
I actually have two comments. One is that they've graciously allowed us to have a tour over at Capitol View for our school board. It's at 9:30 a.m. Over at Capitol View. That's in Little Canada.
Little Canada, yeah.
I believe. So they're going to give us a full
When?
tour. I'm going to send the agenda out to, can I send the agenda to you, Dawn? And then you can send it out to the board members.
Is that next?
October 4th.
Would it be appropriate to ask Dawn to send us a reminder email next week sometime? I'm just saying. Seriously.
It is during the day.
Yeah, I got state meetings and I've got with homecoming.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's the one that I really wanted to go.
I'm so sorry.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yes.
And that actually there'll be, there's actually 2 more tours that are being set up. So I suppose if anybody's interested in them, those are on November 6th. And one is the Career and Technical Center with 916. I only had briefly saw the email today, so I don't have any more information right now, but I'll get that out to if anybody's interested in participating.
All right. Any other topics?
Yeah, I also want to highlight at homecoming, there's also the fireworks, which is
That's
a
right.
unique Heights tradition. Been going for at least 15 years, I believe, so come out and see them. They're great.
Yeah.
There's one thing I missed in my report. I would be remiss to not recognize and thank the local at their picnic. They invited and had an opportunity to go out there, and they did a really nice job. They were very welcoming, and thank you for that, so.
All right. Good, yeah.
I also want to say, MSBA is accepting nominations for the All-State School Board. So if anybody wants to be nominated, I would be interested in being nominated for that. It's quite an honor, so I think they're due back middle of October.
Okay.
The applications.
All right. Any other topics? Hearing none, adjourn the meeting at 9:54.